Welcome to a Leader's Journey podcast. I'm your host, Joel Gunn. My friend Marcus Walker is with us on the show today. Marcus is the executive director at Daily Bread. They put about $10 million worth of groceries into the local community every year. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. We've known each other, I was thinking, probably close to 10 years now, 9 or 10 years.
I think that's about right. I was thinking about that myself. I was like, wow, time flies.
Yeah, it's kind of special for me to have you on the show. Yours is an organization that my wife and I personally donate to.
Yeah, I know.
We believe in your mission and really excited about what y'all are doing here in the community. Tell us a little bit about Daily Bread, and then I got a few questions I want to bounce off.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, everybody, even in our name, Daily Bread, you automatically go to the food, and that is a really big part, obviously, of what we do here. But we kind of more of a core belief that food is an incredible tool to be able to reach people and build relationships. And so our entire focus is really how do we support the church? So we don't serve the end user. We're a little bit different as a nonprofit in that way, because our entire focus is the body of Christ, the church, local ministries here in San Antonio, and now even in the outskirts of Houston and about to be in Corpus. But our focus is how do we equip the church to be the church right where they are, and so we have just found that food is an incredible tool that the church can use to build relationships with their community, and then try to address poverty on a deeper level. And so we do a lot of training around that as well. So while we're really known for the food, and it's obviously in our name, poverty alleviation training is really what we're about, because that's where the true lasting life change happens. And so we bring a lot of training to the local church to help them utilize that food in a better way.
My wife and I were privileged to come out with a small group of folks probably about 2 years ago and just hang out with you guys for a day, getting food ready to go into the community and putting a little action to our words. And you said something as we toured the facility just before we went out to work about this idea of poverty elimination training. And you mentioned something about a financial course, and it might have been me, might have been somebody else said something about Dave Ramsey, and you kind of smiled and said, we really we really honor and appreciate who Dave Ramsey is and what he brings to the world. But a lot of the people that we're working with can't even imagine putting $1,000 together into some sort of savings account. They've never seen that much money, and that really just struck home with me. Is just how blessed we are to assume that here in America that a basic financial course must be something like Dave Ramsey, his intro course, and you're like, no, it's way more fundamental than that.
I personally, I actually took Financial Peace, the Dave Ramsey thing. It was life-changing for me, but I've had jobs and I've had some resources, and so it made sense for me, and it makes sense for a lot of folks, but just so happens the ones that end up showing up to a food pantry. I know exactly what you're talking about because I say it all the time. The folks that are showing up to a food pantry, if you talk about save $1,000 right off the bat, it's the same as talking about going to the moon. That's way out of their realm of understanding at this point in their journey. And so we've got to use some different resources to help those folks get to where they're trying to go.
You've been in leadership for a while. Even before Daily Bread, you were involved in various organizations and some sort of leadership capacity. What really had a profound impact? Is there a story in your past that really kind of shaped who you are as a leader today?
Yeah, I always go back to the same story, and I don't know that at the time I would have viewed it as this man was investing in my future leadership. It's I it's kind of an interesting story. I was in youth ministry in my early days of ministry, excuse me. And, I got hired at a church I'm not I won't name names. It's not here anymore anyway. But in any case, I got hired in a church basically because they thought I was the right age to work with youth. It was really interesting. They didn't ask, much about anything outside, of my spiritual life. And at the time, I wasn't even a believer. I just, but, but I do know that I always loved kids. And and it was a little extra money at the time, and I thought, sure, I can do that. I'll just, I'll get the kids together. We'll have some pizza and we'll have some games, and I didn't even know, and so just kind of over the process of about a year, I was in that role, and they traded the pastors out, and I will say, in that year, I did come to know the Lord, and gave my life to Him, and so that was important, to say the least. uh, but in that time, we had a change of pastors, and the new pastor that came in, he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. When we sat down to meet for the first time, we got together and we were just talking and sharing our stories, and he said, I want to spend time with you.
Hmm.
And I said, okay. Didn't know, never had anybody say, I want to spend time with you. That was different. His name was Shane Barnes. I always want to say his name because man, the guy had an incredible impact on my life. We spent, and this is no exaggeration, we spent every Monday afternoon for 8 years. He spent pouring into me. We had a set time Monday afternoons. Sometimes we do it in an office. Sometimes it's like he had a little girl and she'd want to go play at McDonald's. So we'd meet at McDonald's, and she's playing and we're talking. And I remember a few times he was working on his car and we're out there and we're working on his car, and he's talking to me about the Lord, and he's talking to me about leadership. And we're just, he was extremely intentional in investing in me. And that changed my life.
Hmm.
And I think it sealed something deep in me around the idea of discipleship, and what does it look like to to have a Timothy in your life? What does it look like to be investing in that next person, in that next generation? And I love that. And that led my journey down a road. I joined an organization called Youth with a Mission. When
Hmm.
that church closed, 8 years, that we were together there. When that church closed, that was rough,
Hmm.
but I joined an organization called Youth with a Mission and led discipleship training schools, which was all about investing in young people. I just and that's just kind of has been the case. I have a couple of Timothys in my life today, you know, and I'm blessed with some Barnabases as well that still speak into my life. And so it's Shane Barnes changed my life.
Wow.
God used him in that way, and I am confident I would not be here today without it.
It's really cool to hear, stories like this where a mentor took time to invest in a mentee. How do you try to he paid it forward in some regard. How do you try to do that as you're walking out your leadership journey? Like you said, you have a couple of folks that you're
Yes.
soaking into.
So I mean, I my first and foremost is going to be my son. He's a high schooler. He's a senior in high school this year, and investing in him, investing in his leadership, is something that I'm very blessed because he wants it. And that is a big part of it. I mean, it's hard to invest in somebody that doesn't want it,
Hmm.
so, but, so he's my first, but then, just I'm always looking for that next person. Who is that person that God is just, he's showing you, or I think God allows you to see potential in somebody,
Hmm.
and I've just I've come to learn that when God allows you to see something, that's his invitation to you to be a part of what he wants to do. because there's people I see every day that I'm sure are full of potential that I just don't see that. I don't, it's like I don't have that kind of connection or that
Mhm.
opportunity to see it. But when I do see it, I kind of take that as an invitation from the Lord to see, hey, what could we do here? And so yeah.
A lot of people talk about wanting to be mentors. Practically, what does that look like for you? Is it, you had a set time Monday afternoons with Shane, but how have you seen that play out in your journey?
It's every situation is different. I think intentionality is really important. And so with the one young man I'm pouring into right now, he actually works here. So that's really helpful.
Yeah,
It's very convenient.
yeah,
But he's young, he's newly married, and he's a great guy, and I see so much potential in him. And we don't, we sat down, we 8 o'clock every Tuesday morning, 8 to 9. That's our time. We're reading through a book right now, together, just discussing it. It's a leadership book. He wants to grow in his leadership. It can go any directions. We rarely talk about daily bread.
hmm,
Most of what we talk about is, what is it, as a young married man, what is it, to lead where you are, even when you're not in a quote unquote leadership position, you can still lead. And so, lead your family, lead your wife, what are the things that, where there's opportunities for that. And so, and just we talk a lot about identity because if you don't know who you are, very difficult to lead.
well, that's good. That's good. You mentioned going through a book together. Are there any particular books that are kind of your favorite go-tos on these topics?
And it's a newer book, and it had a profound impact on me before I was in the role that I was in right now. You know, I was blessed to be hired by our founder here at Daily Bread, Seth Keen. He hired me back 15 years ago, and kind of been on this journey. And at the time, he was looking to step out, and they hired a new executive director. I really felt like I wasn't ready to step into that role. My son was young. I knew the time commitment that it was going to take, and I wasn't ready to try to step up to that. And so they hired somebody outside, and it was interesting because I felt like I was more carrying the DNA of this place than anybody else because of the amount of time I had been here. But I was still reporting to somebody, that was directly above me. And at times that was a little difficult because it's like I knew a lot more than he did about the organization because they had just brought him in.
Mhm,
And I came across a book called Leading When You're Not in Charge,
mhm.
Clay Scroggins. Worked under Andy Stanley at North Point, and it's a fantastic book on what it looks like to lead, even when you're not the one that's going to make final decisions, or you're not the one that's, you know, he talks a lot about the idea of leadership is influence. It's not authority. I mean, sometimes we sit back and we wait for somebody to give us the position or the chair or the whatever that is, before we feel like we can really lead. And the fact is that is you can lead at any point. Everybody's
Mhm.
got some influence somewhere, somehow. And so how do you lead through the influence that you have and the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you operate? And so it's a fantastic book. I love it. I highly recommend it, especially to anybody that might feel like, okay, my role is kind of the second seat in an
Mhm.
organization. And that can be difficult at times. And it also spoke a lot to me on and really helped me navigate. You never really know what it feels like to sit in that top seat. You don't know the challenges that are with it. There's no way to know those things until you're actually in it. And I've certainly experienced that as well, at this point. And so, to have that grace and have that compassion with that person that is in that role and that has that responsibility was important to learn.
That's good. You know, one of the things that leaders wrestle with is just being refreshed themselves. How do you handle those mental and emotional strains that come with leadership? How do you keep that
Some days
in
better than others.
balance?
Just say some days better than others, right? Yeah, leadership can be, and I'm sure people know this, but leadership can be lonely. And I say can be, doesn't have to be. We I think it's really important for a leader to choose to put ourselves in a place where we're around other leaders, where we can get encouragement, where we can find out we're not alone. Because I think the thing that we can tend to do is feel like nobody really understands what I'm going through.
Mhm.
Nobody really knows what this is like. And there can be a feeling of like, yeah, I'm really just alone out here in this, and there's not really anybody I can talk to that really understands what I'm. And that's not the truth. The truth is that there's leaders all over the place right now, that are that are finding fellowship, finding encouragement, together. And so so I've learned that I need to be intentional about things. It's like I've got a small group that I can, at church that that I can talk to. I'm on a C12 board, which just maybe a little plug for them, but with some great individuals that speak life into me, and I get the opportunity to speak life into them, and that's extremely helpful to just when you realize, hey, you know what? Now we're all kind of doing that. And so I'd say, on that side, it's, building your network where you're not alone. Up the other side, I was just reading this morning, actually. See if I can pull it up. I was You have to be in the word.
Hmm.
And I thought this is actually really, if I can real quick, just Luke
Yeah.
6. Luke 6. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I tell you? Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and does them, I will show you what he is like. He's like a man that builds a house who dug deep and laid a foundation on the rock. And when a flood arose, the stream broke against the house and could not shake it because it had been well built. What does it mean? For me, I know if I get in the word every morning, it kind of helps me reset no matter
Mm.
what's going on, no matter what we're wrestling with, no matter what's happening around me. It just kind of it recenters me.
Mhm.
That word of, what is it? We've got to be built on a good foundation. And if you're not getting God's word inside you, I think it'd be really difficult to do. And I certainly have had seasons in my life. I wish I could tell you that every single morning I'm in the word. I'm on a really good streak right now. That's what I'll tell you. But you have those times where for whatever reason it just, it's like, okay, man, I just need to get myself back in the word. You just have this moment of like, that was dumb. Just why did I choose to miss that, or why didn't I just get up earlier? Whatever the case might be, I'll yeah, I'd strongly speak to any leader that, man, if you're not in the word, I don't know how you stay grounded.
That's
All
good.
these things get really, really big if you don't have perspective.
That's really good. You mentioned you have a heart for young people, always have, even accepting a position as a youth leader way back. What do you see the biggest challenge for the next generation, and what would your advice be to them, especially the next generation of leaders?
Yeah, find out who you are. That's the simple that identity. I think identity, and not, one of the bigger challenges I think is that there's a world telling you who you're supposed to be, or who you need to be or what it means to be successful. They're telling you a whole bunch of stuff, and especially the younger generation. Like I said, I have a son who's a senior in high school, and the world is bombarding them with messages of what what success looks like, or what it means you know to be whatever they it's just telling them to be whatever it wants to tell them. And and if you don't know who you are, it's really, really difficult. And so, I'll just tell you, we this is something God spoke to me about a year ago. My wife and I have always been really intentional about raising our son, in a Christian household, making sure that the word is getting in him, to the point now that it's, that he's doing it on his own,
Mm,
and that's great. He is Our first and highest priority was his relationship with the Lord, and that he would find a relationship with the Lord, and he would own that relationship with the Lord. And that's a really, like, that's the foundation that you want to build on. So he was there in that. And I was praying, and I was like, God, what's next for him? Like, what do I need to do? We're starting to get close to, I don't think you ever finish the parenting. It just looks different, but we're getting close to a time where, okay, we're not going to have influence over him every day anymore. He's a senior in high school. He's going to go off. He's going to do, whatever he does next. What are the things that I need to focus on in this last time? And I really felt like the Lord said, okay, he's secure in his relationship with me. Now it's time to start focusing on helping him understand how I made him.
mm,
Because if he can understand how he made him, then he doesn't need to go out and try to be somebody else. God is calling all of us to be who he made us to be. I'm not supposed to be Joel. Joel's not supposed to be Marcus, right? It's
mhm,
God has a purpose for our lives. And so how do we help young people find their identity first in their relationship with the Lord, but then find their, how did he create you? What are the unique things that he put in you? And so there's all kinds of stuff out there that you can use. We use. I'm a big fan of Lencioni, Patrick.
mm.
And his. We use it here even with our staff. It's his newest thing, the 6 types of working genius. We use that just as an understanding of how we should hire. It's like I don't want to hire somebody for a job that they're not designed by God to do. And so, but how do we help people begin to figure out how God made you? What is it, and what's your identity? You look around, identity is under attack all the time.
Mm.
All the time. It's everywhere we look in our society, identity is an issue. And so if we can help people, and help especially young people find their identity in Christ, but then how he made them, yeah, I think that's the game changer. And so, the simple answer is figure out who you are and how God made you.
We could go a whole nother episode on identity. I'm having all kinds of thoughts come as you're sharing some of those things. But probably had to land the plane on this one. Marcus, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just I'm grateful for the opportunity to hop on here. I agree with you. I could talk about this identity stuff all day long because it's near and dear to my heart. I think it's so powerful. I'm 51 years old, and only in the last few years have I really started to figure out who I am. And it's been it brings a lot of just security. And so I've just seen the impact it's having on me personally, seeing the impact it's having on my son and my family. And so, yeah, I could spend all day on this subject. So, but
Well,
I
maybe we need
appreciate
to
the
get back on
opportunity.
each other's calendar and do that
Yeah, we
very
can do that.
thing.
Would love to. Would love to. Yeah.
Well, Marcus, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. Blessings, brother.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel. It's great to be here.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of A Leader's Journey podcast. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to our channel.